All right, so Photoshop's launched and I want to create something new. So I'm going to click on the Create New button. I'm going to go over for this assignment to the Web presets, and that's just a predefined collection of very popular sizes. You can always override these presets regardless of what we're doing. All right, we're going to use Web Most Common. It's the first one selected, so we're going to accept it because we don't actually have a particular size we need to conform to, and then I'm going to click Create. So you'll notice that here, it's called Artboard 1, and over here in our Layers palette, we have Artboard 1, and it's got a blank layer automatically created for us. Before we go any further, I'm going to go to my Window menu, Workspace. I'm going to make sure that Essentials is selected, and if it is selected, I'm just going to select Reset Essentials, and it just collects all the different palettes into a predefined space. There's always extra stuff here that we don't need to see as we're working. This is a good example, this whole Learn thing. So I can just click on the little arrow here to collapse that, and it frees up a lot more real estate in my screen. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to place my first image. So I'm going to go to File, and you might be used to using the Open command and then dragging an image into Photoshop. When we use the Place command, it does the same thing without having to do that extra step, and it brings that image in as a smart object. And what's nice about working with smart objects is you can still apply a lot of effects, change the color, contrast, etc., but it never changes the original file, which isn't the case when we just drag an image into Photoshop. Another huge advantage is if you're doing a lot of scaling, if you're working with a composition, you really don't know what size you want your different elements to be. If it's a smart object, it doesn't lose any resolution. So if I just use the click drag technique of introducing something to Photoshop and I scaled it down really small and I saved the file, and then the next day I go to it and I want to scale up that particular layer or image that's on a layer, then I've lost a lot of the image quality. This maintains that, and it gives you the option to always go back and resize without sacrificing anything. So I'm going to go to Place Embedded, and when in doubt, you can always navigate to your desktop, find the folder that contains your images, and I'm going to start off with red. I'm going to click Place, and the moment I place it, it's already ready for me to transform. Now, one habit I'm struggling to break myself of is holding my Shift key if I want to scale something up or down and maintain its proportions or its aspect ratio. In this version of Photoshop, by default, it automatically has that triggered. So I don't have to hold any modifier key. If I want to scale something up, I just have to click on a corner and it scales up proportionately. So I'm going to scale it up so that it fills up the width and the height. It's okay if some of it gets cut off. It's much better to allow part of an image to be cropped off than it is to stretch it to fit a space, typically. Once I'm happy with the size, I'm just going to press Enter. All right, so far so good. The next thing I want to do is I want to find my Type tool. T is for Type. I click on it. And I'd really like you to get in the habit of when you're working with the Type tool, instead of just clicking and typing something, click and drag to create a space for your type. It automatically gets filled in with what's called lorem ipsum. It looks really Latin-y and it's just placeholder text. But you notice that the second I created that text container, it got filled in with this default text. It's already highlighted. So now I can just start typing. Red, little dash. Is red a primary color? Yes. And then I can select my Move tool after I finish typing and figure out where I want to position this information. I want it to be positioned sort of in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, and notice that there's sort of an approximate equal space between this edge and the bottom. And because I want to maintain that spacing, and the words that I'm going to be typing are going to be different lengths, I want to make sure that it always maintains that relationship to the corner. So I'm going to double-click on the T, and I want to find my paragraph formatting options. And if formatting I want to do is really simple, I can just look at the top of the screen, and I'm going to change it so it's going to align to the right-hand side of my document. But when I do that, it might move, and it didn't this time. That's great. All right, and I'm just going to increase the size of the container, and I like to keep things tidy. And then I reselect my Move tool. First slide created. Now I'm going to go to File, Save. I want to save it on my computer. All right, when in doubt, you can always go to your desktop, find the folder that you're looking for. And my little trick that I use all the time is I typically view things as list. And when I do that, notice that I can click on Date Modified. This is the most recent folder I've been making any changes to, so I can find it easily. Double-click to open that. Double-click to open that. And as always, our naming convention, last name, first initial, Artboards. I'm going to replace that old one. You're always going to see this prompt unless you click Don't Show Again. I'm just going to click OK. All right, so I have one artboard done. I'm going to drag out the layer palette just so we can focus on that for a moment. And I'm going to click on the bottom to open it up a bit. So you'll notice your artboards can be collapsed to view up some space in your layers palette. It can be opened up if you want to target a specific layer within that artboard collection. So in a way, you can really think of an artboard as a folder, a layer folder. But now we can have multiple artboards in a single document. So now that I have established where my type is going to be, the typeface that I want to use, I can copy this artboard. Click on the artboard, drag it down to that little plus sign, and it automatically creates a copy. You can rename artboards the same way you can rename layers. This artboard is going to contain the color blue, so I'm going to name it blue. And then I'm going to take a moment to double click on that name and rename it red. And I'm going to zoom back out. And if I zoom out of my document by holding my Command key and pressing the minus key, you can see that I've got two of the exact same thing. So now I need to change blue. So I want to make sure that blue is selected in my layers palette. All right, so blue is active. I'm going to go to File, Place Embedded, and I'm going to find my blue image. I'm going to click Place, and it's almost exactly the right size, and that's a total fluke. So I'm just going to scale it up a bit. And again, I don't have to hold the Shift key to scale proportionately. Press Enter. And now, for my blue artboard, I've got the correct layer. I don't need red in this one, so I'm just going to throw it into the tiny trash can at the bottom of the palette. But now my type is underneath the image. So I'm just going to click on the type layer, pull it up, double-click the T to select all this text. I need to zoom in because it's too tiny to work. Change the word red, or try to blue. Easy. All right, so you set up one slide correctly. It's easy to duplicate, easy to switch things out, easy to remove information. And that's it. And I would continue on with the rest of my images, identifying whether or not that color is a primary or a secondary color. And at the end, you'll have 6 different artboards populating this canvas area. And then the next step will be to save it out as a PDF.